How's everybody doing?
Good to see everyone.
How's this conference treating you so far? Hands up if you're learning something new. That's awesome.
It's pretty good.
So with me is Irina Novoselsky.
Yes.
That's a tough. I was hoping I didn't have to introduce that name because I'm bad with that. She is the CEO of Hootsuite, formerly at CareerBuilder. Is that correct? So maybe you can just kick us off real quick. Hootsuite, that transition. What's going on there? How do you find the gig?
Love the gig. I mean, who doesn't love running a social media management platform? I'll tell you a fun fact. I do the thing that nobody is supposed to do first thing in the morning. They tell you the worst thing for you to do is wake up and check social media. And so for a really long time, that has been how I start every single day. For the first 30 minutes, the joke is I download the internet. And so for the first time, it's now part of my career, and it's good for me to be starting my days with social media. So it's been a great fit in that way. And from just a industry trends perspective and everything that's happening, it's great to be at this intersection of communication and disruption, and social media just sits in the middle of it.
That's awesome. So let's get into the trends and the things you're seeing that are changing in the world of social media. Social media is not that old. I would even say that the word social is less and less associated with what we find on those networks. You see algorithms taking control of the timelines, and a fracturing of the space into all kinds of different demographics, different products, a huge upswing of innovation around decentralization with companies like Lens and Blue Sky. So tell us what that fracturing means, and do you see it as fracturing? And how does that impact people's social media strategies?
Yeah, I see a little bit as evolution. If we do a little game for those of you, I see a lot of you have your phones out. If you entertain me for a minute, take your phone out. If you go to settings and you go to your screen time and then you go to social, and we're going to be honest, there's no judging, maybe a little judging, but not a lot of judging. If you were to raise your hands and tell me, today's Tuesday, of your social time, how many of you spent at least 1 hour on social media according to the screen time? Come on, raise it high, own it. I'll tell you mine at the end. Okay, keep it up if it's more than 2 hours. Keep it up if it's more than 3 hours. Okay, keep it up if it's more than 4 hours. You guys get the point. If you look around, there is a lot of people. Mine, I am sad to admit, is about 9 hours, and we're on Tuesday. But the takeaway for me is there's 5 billion people around the world that are glued to their screens on social media. And so while there's definitely some extremism around happening, kind of the siphoning off, looking for less of the social piece, but the majority of people are spending their time on social media. And if you want to be where your customers are, there's no other better place to be.
So I want to pursue that just a bit. I used to work at Twitter, and we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was good quality time on the app versus people were looking for something they couldn't find. So how would you say that the social media space is in terms of discoverability, connecting people to the interests, to the accounts that they are going to find the most interesting?
Yeah, one of the things that we have over 100,000 customers that we work with, and one of the number one things that they come to us and say, how do you help get us our brand out? How do we get our brand out? And at the end of the day, people want to buy from people. They don't want to buy from businesses. They don't want to buy from bots. They don't want to buy from algorithms. And so one of the things that we've seen to really unlock some of the value has been, how do you channel your greatest strength as a company? And that's your employee base. And so, one of the examples that comes to mind is Colliers, which is a big Canadian company, the #1 brokerage business. And we partnered with them to grow their traffic and their presence over 200% by enabling and putting targeting and very central, specific, personalized content in the hands of their brokers and enabling them to have human relationships and reach out on a human level instead of a brand reaching out. You don't really want to interact with that.
Right. So that's a big switch, because it used to be people were terrified of letting their employees get involved in social media.
It's so funny you say that. And you see it on the spectrum of companies that embrace it. And we also do a lot of work making sure there's safety and control. So we integrate with your compliance policy so that if you write a post that doesn't somehow align to what your policy is, we won't let you post it. So there's protection put in place. It'll have big red letters, so it kind of makes it a little bit of a safer space. But there's a lot more understanding that if you want your brand to have relevance and to be out there, you can't not show up in a place that has 5 billion eyes on it.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about formats and what is working these days on social vis-a-vis video versus live content like Spaces. Twitter Spaces generate massive audiences, but it's appointment programming versus photo versus funny GIFs. What do you find is the best approach in terms of finding the right mix of all of these different types
we
of media?
Hootsuite just posted something a few weeks ago that kind of had the top 5. One of them, I'm not going to be able to tell you the exact 5, but one of them was video. Facts, the engagement with numbers is really high, and then selfies. And even if it's raw, unedited, kind of, you see a lot of people walking down the street doing the videos that you kind of get a little seasick doing it. They have really, really high engagement.
That's very cool. Let's pivot a little bit into things that are a little below the radar. I think probably everybody in this room, you guys work in social media. Raise hands if you're actually on a marketing team working in social. So I would guess that there's a pretty deep understanding of at a high level about what's happening. But what are some things that you've seen that probably would be a surprise to this crowd?
I'll give you one thing. So we talk about brands and how important it is to be out there to engage. The number one way to lose a customer is through customer experience. 80% of people that we've polled will leave a brand for poor customer experience. I was all over your social media channels prepping for this, and I saw that you were very frustrated with a certain brand and went on and said, I am never going to this brand again. And for those of you that have been following, how many of you saw what happened with Airbnb and Booking.com? Anybody show hands? A few of you? Okay, I'll give you the takeaway. So there's this young woman, Alex, who booked on Booking.com, went to Italy on a trip, showed up. Her apartment that she booked didn't exist. So at 12 midnight, she went on social and basically said, hey, my apartment is not there. I booked it. Can you help me? And Booking.com wrote back and said, we're so sorry for this inconvenience. Can you please send us a note on a direct message on a social media channel, blah, 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 blah. And Airbnb immediately saw it, went straight at her and said, we got you, babe. Put her up in a villa. And she then did a whole video of how she's got put up in this villa. It got 3 million views within 4 hours. And the thing that nobody talks about is not being present 24/7 on social no longer is an option. It's like someone knocking on your door and you just saying, nah, I'm not going to answer today. And the funny thing is the trends that we're seeing around that, which I think is really interesting, people are transacting on social media. So not only do people expect, so there's the stat of 70% of people are commenting on brands that they work with on their social media channels to get customer support, and they expect an answer within an hour, and 30% of them expect an answer within 30 minutes. And then the interesting thing is they're transacting. So one of our customers is Melia Hotels. I don't know if any of you have stayed there. It's the second largest hotel brand in the world. And in working with us, they noticed that 10% of their social media traffic shows up to book on social media. So imagine saying, I would like this hotel tonight. Can you please book it for me? Like not going on their site to book it, just directly, or Air Canada's a client.
So think about the trade-offs there. So you're doing it in public, and that gives you this sort of transparency if you execute
if you're on it
well.
Yeah.
It could also be a disaster if
Which
you're
is what happened to you.
Fumbling it.
Yeah.
My story was just, I reached the CEO. I texted him on LinkedIn, and he got back to me. So you can definitely connect with people who you wouldn't expect to. But I would ask you also this, people without social juice. Is there going to be a social haves and have-nots in this world where you get white glove service if you've got social
I love
reach
that you
and
said that,
influence?
because one of the big things that came up with this whole Booking Airbnb story was that Alex had 5 million TikTok followers, so she was kind of an influencer. And the whole thing that spun up was, well, what about the rest of us that don't have 5 million followers? And I think one of the things that social media, and we do a lot of this with our customers, is how do you democratize customer service? I mean, one of the things that irritates me is being on a holding line or sending an email and it goes into the abyss, versus now you go on social media, anybody can do it, and the expectation is you get a response. And so I actually think it'll level the playing field. Okay,
so we have 8 minutes left, but I think this is such a meaty, big top. Who wants to hear about AI in this audience? I've guessed you might. Okay.
I mean, we made it a solid 8 minutes. I'm really impressed.
Give you lots of runway to give us the full. What's your thought process around how does AI impact all of these systems? Are bots going to be talking to bots? Are people going to have a harder time connecting with real people in
Yeah.
this new world? Or do we get amazing algorithms that connect us exactly to the content that we love? What's your take?
So we have a little bit of a controversial take. And I'll share 3 stats and I'll give you the controversial take. The 3 stats are 90% of people trust the medical information that they get on social media. 80% of them get their financial advice off social media. And of the graduating class of high schoolers this year, almost 80% use social media to determine what college they want to go to. And the reason I am sharing this is that the reason we go to social media and the reason social media got created was it was supposed to be a human-to-human interaction. It wasn't made for business. It wasn't made for selling. It was just humans connecting and building a community. Part of how we got started and our founder built Hootsuite was because he wanted to help bridge the gap of understanding how do you take 2 humans and help connect them and make it about relationship. And so our kind of controversial take on it is I think human relationships are going to become even more important. And it's going to be a very human-first mindset because nobody wants to get spammed. I mean, think
Right.
about our emails.
I don't think that's a controversial stance.
It is where I'm going. Everywhere I'm going is like it's AI first, it's technology
Well,
first.
I was thinking, coming from the media world, I always think there's 2 customers. There's the business customer, the people who are buying the ads and making your revenue streams. And then there's your customers who want something else. They have a completely different incentive, a completely different value proposition of why they interact with you. And it feels to me the brands are going to be very, very hot on AI. Mm-hmm. Anybody in an agency who's making ads is going to be thinking, how can I leverage generative?
To target as a tool,
and
to enable.
And all of that stuff. And on the flip side, you've got people who don't want any of that. You have to find walk a very delicate line in order to not alienate people, overwhelm them with stuff that's turns out to be not authentic or not connected to their interests, and they can turn off and tune out. So how do you feel about the consumer side of it? Do you think people are versus the brand side, and are we going to start to see a divergence of interest?
Definitely. I think the authenticity is what you said is going to be most important. We see it in the data of what goes viral on social media. It's authentic posts, it's human posts, it's selfies, it's personal comments. It's not the things that are manufactured. And I think the way it's going to be used is, you mentioned imagery or video in the beginning of our conversation. I think AI will help with the campaigns and set up a lot of that stuff. We have an AI feature tool that allows you to do content creation for writer's block, but it's a starting point. It's made to have a human editor. AI will do a ton of targeting to say, okay, I want lots of Evans that have consumed this kind of content. Can you help me find them? But at the end of the day, if you're reading things, you're going to want something that is relevant to you and human, and you're going to know if you're being sold to or interacted with an AI algorithm.
So let's get into it, though, because some of this stuff is getting really, really good. Deepfakes have been around for a while, and the quality of them even at present is pretty good. And we know the arc of technology is nonlinear, so it's only going to get better and better. And I have to ask the question about misinformation. When you said all of these people are trusting social media for these important life decisions, you have to ask, is that a smart decision? Is the information you're getting off of Reddit, like personal finance, really going to be the answer to your question? Or there's so much meme stock selling and people shilling and taking advantage of this momentary FOMO and trying to set up all kinds of crazy schemes. And it happens in the NFT space, in all kinds of areas where you have the social reach of social media becomes a very potent tool to basically defraud people. So how do you feel about that, and what kind of mitigations are available to prevent that from happening?
Okay, I'll say it in 3 ways. From a corporate perspective, it starts with governance, understanding where's your data, what are you comfortable putting out there, anything that you're putting into these AI tools and ChatGPT and everything else, that's not yours anymore. There's content infringement, there's IP rights, there's trademarking, right? So when you're getting all your videos created for you, who owns that? When you're using the code base that is building code for you, who owns that code? Who owns the IP? So there's a ton of governance around it that you just have to be really thoughtful in the beginning before you're kind of allowing employees to put stuff into that. On the consumer side, the consumers of social media, I think it's going to be and again, you see it with Gen Z. When you look at what they're interacting with, they are not going after brands that are, fake, right? Or if they follow influencers and all of a sudden an influencer is hacking something that's not really authentic to what their feed has been, they stop following it and they see 20 to 30% drops. And so I think if we want to go after that audience and be really focused on getting that audience, it will have to be with authentic messaging, because they'll be able to see through that. But they'll also, like everything else that is new, when the internet came out, when email, I mean, everybody remembers my uncle needs $1 million email, everybody, or whatever that story is. So there's definitely be a curve of adjustment. And I think that's both on the consumers, the business, government, and I don't think anybody really has an answer on how to handle it.
So what about the upsides? Like you said, people are going to be looking for this human connection. Where do we see the big advantages of AI? How do we get to a better place with AI, given all of these potential downsides?
Just takes out the work that you don't want to be doing. It's the mundane, same repetitive tasks. I mean, we see one of the number one things that influencers and content creators talk about, 70% say their number one thing is writer's block of, what do I come up with? I just have given you all my best. It's on there. I can't come up with any more ideas. And so we have an AI tool that allows you to kind of put in a topic, or I can take your recent blog post and put it in there and it'll write topics on it. Again, the tools are amazing because they allow you to have efficiency and automation, and it allows you to up-level what you work on. So instead of spending your day on figuring out the basics of how to write something, you have something written for you, and everyone prefers to be an editor of work than starting with a blank sheet of paper, which is a lot harder. So it just allows you to go up in the value chain a little bit.
Do you expect that influencers are going to be competing with completely automated AI avatars who are look and speak and are?
It's funny you say that on the avatar part. I think it's a little different than AI, because I do think a lot of what's happening, and again, going back to Gen Z, that AR is a huge market. And one of the things that we're seeing with retail, and they're usually the forefront of digital innovation, is they've now started, I don't know how many of you guys have seen some of the ads that have just went out for some of the high-end luxury brands that you can put on the clothing through AR. And so I do think that there's going to be some really cool avatar stuff coming out. Metaverse
is back. You have about 45 seconds to mic drop. Give a good mic drop here.
A good mic drop. I gave you all my stats. I'll ask for a quick favor, because we're a social media company. How do people feel about me doing a quick selfie video? All right. That was the weakest response, but we're going to do it anyway. Okay, ready? Hello from Collision. Everyone say hi.
All right.
Thank you all. Thank you for engaging and letting me do that. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Irina Novoleski from Hootsuite.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I think we're bored.